Hi, thank you for stopping by today for the birthday bash. Um, Today's reading is going to come from the anthology that I submitted a story to called Keep the Stars Running. It's about average Joes doing average things in space. Not supposed to be filled with adventure. Mine did have a little adventure to it, but I guess it didn't break the rules too much. I guess it was accepted. But um, it won a Rainbow Award December of 2015, which was really cool. And it contains stories from Cassandra Pierce, Andrea Speed, Talia Andor, and Leona Carver. And it's about my story. The Aurora Conspiracy is about Reagan, who is a dock worker and crane operator on a space station out in the middle of nowhere, well, on the edge of space. I guess you're always in the middle of nowhere when you're in space, just because the things are so far apart. I'm gonna apologize now because I made up words for my aliens, and I know I have an idea of how to say them, um, but my mouth might not be able to say how I think they should be said. So I apologize now if I stumble over a couple of words and some of the longer words. My tongue, I'm going to stumble. My reading's not going to be perfect, but I'm sure you've already noticed that by now if you're this far into it. So um, I hope you enjoy the story. This was really, really, really fun to write, even though it was really hard. So this is Aurora Conspiracy by me. Chapter 1. Waiting was the worst. I knew the constables did it on purpose. The guilty squirmed unless they were self-assured. I didn't know why I'd been brought into security for questioning, but I was positive I'd done nothing wrong. How could I get into any mischief when I kept to myself? Tipping the cup back, I finished off the water. It had a slight mineral aftertaste that was to be expected when living on a space station orbiting an uninhabitable planet. Everything was recycled to the nth degree. The taste of the processed water seemed sharper than usual, and I wasn't sure if any hypersensitivity was imagined or caused by the low-level tension sitting on my stomach. The veneer of the edge of the tabletop had peeled back, either from age or from those trapped with nothing to do in the sterile room, as they too waited. I scraped a dark fingernail over the clear curling bits of lacquer, mentally noting I needed to file down my nails again. They had grown out enough that they were becoming pointed. The door to the interrogation room opened, and two constables from the fraternity entered, a Nilithian and a Brachian, both wearing blue uniforms that did nothing to hide the fact they wore light armor underneath. Did they expect me to attack them? The fact that I knew one of the constables at one time, deeply and intimately, should have caused some kind of emotional reaction. Relief, panic, anger, with a bit of cussing on the side would have been more appropriate than this dull numbness that wasn't even colored by surprise. I'd been duped, and knowing that made it possible for me to give the constables a blank face. They wanted something from me, of that I was sure, but I wouldn't give anything away, I hoped. Somewhat familiar with the fraternity, I'd known they would require I take a serum before the interrogation. When constables questioned you, they skipped over all the other stages of the interview straight to give me the correct answers in the first meeting. Constables didn't beat around the bush. They pulled it up by the roots to get to the meat of the matter. That I didn't react to the sudden appearance of that particular Brachian meant they had dosed me pretty well, with more than something to loosen my tongue. Glancing at the glass of water, I called myself every kind of fool. I hadn't expected them to be sneaky about it. I gave my attention to the Nilithian as I attempted to recall my humanitarian studies from college. Of the two, he would be the real threat to me. I remained still as I surreptitiously looked the reptilian over his face, and I knew his gender because the females of their race had 4 arms instead of 2. Was partially obscured by a steel cow, the gauze-like metal covering his large eyes. Only the flat nose and wide, thin mouth were visible. Glancing down to his hands, I noted he wore gloves, at least for now. The danger would come when, he removed them. Reluctantly, I turned my gaze to the Brachien, perhaps a wee bit thankful for the drugs that coursed through my veins. He wasn't surprised to see me, which was understandable. No constable would enter an interrogation room without knowing the background of the person they planned to question. The color of his skin ran from a dusky gray to almost silvery in hue, a healthy color, not sickly gray-green like the last time I saw him. I was pleased he had recovered. Hope I wasn't aware I'd harbored these last several years dissipated under the steely gaze of those dark, unreadable eyes. Glancing away, I stowed my useless questions behind my mental shields to hide them from the coming interrogation. Now wasn't the time to renew old acquaintances. I leaned back in the chair and waited as if I had all the time in the universe. The Nilithian spoke first. I am Constable Quan Warthunder, and this is my partner, Constable Makari Gansei. Do you know why you are here today? No. Constable Quan seemed to be waiting for me to elaborate. In any other situation, I might have laughed. In all honesty, I had nothing to give him. He moved over to the wall and activated a clear screen. The movement of his hands brought up and discarded files until my company documents were displayed, including the photograph taken 5 years ago. How young I'd appeared when I signed on with the company. Quan flicked the circular dial that began the recording. Please state your name and occupation for the record. I slouched in my chair, projecting a bored air. Shouldn't you have asked me if I knew why I was here after you started the recording? Quan looked at me over his shoulder as if I was supposed to recognize his expression with half of his face covered. Please state. Reagan Valenta, crane operator for Aurora Minerals and Rare Metals. In the last 12 months, have you sent any electronic files to Aurora's board of directors? No. Do you or have you claimed to have evidence of life on planet TN 95623? I scratched my nose to keep from making a rude noise at the ridiculousness of the questions. No. Have you sent information to Aurora Minerals and Rare Metals stating you discovered life on planet TN 95623? I was so mellow I couldn't even lift my eyebrows. Even so, I quickly pieced together where their questioning was going. That's blackmail. Was I sliding further down in my seat? Why would that be blackmail, Reagan? I scowled, or thought I did, at Quan. Didn't he know it was rude not to look at someone when he spoke to them? Because there is no indigenous life on that planet, the law forbids the mining of planets containing life. Companies conduct extensive checks before sending down mining equipment. Planet TN 95623 was thoroughly investigated before operations began. At this stage, any claim of life would be bogus, and any person stating to have such information would only do so in an attempt to blackmail the company. I scowled at the water again. I was surprisingly worried when a simple no would have sufficed. Are you a member of the Union, Reagan? I snorted. You know I am. Why are you wasting my time, Constable Quan? Please, just Quan. I blew out a breath, suddenly weary. Quan, I said, relenting. I attempted to push myself to sit straight, but my muscles had the consistency of gel. Constable Makari finally moved, pushing off the wall from where he leaned. I tried to ignore him since he'd entered the room, but suddenly I didn't care if looking at him hurt. His healthy gray skin seemed luminous, and long hair hung loose to his waist in hues of gray, white, and silver. I recalled all too well how it felt in my fist and longed to slip my fingers through it again. A dark gray horn started at his right temple at the hairline above his pointed ear, jutting straight back about 6 inches to end in a rounded point. The left horn was missing, but it looked as if there was a nub partially covered by Makari's hair. He moved behind me, grasped me under my arms to pull me up from a slouch. He buckled the wide, retractable chair straps across my chest. I couldn't find it in myself to protest, and it had been so long that I wanted him to touch me, no matter how clinically. Mesmerized, I watched his wide hands bring my arms up and rest them on the chair's armrest. Did his dark claws lightly stroke the inside of my wrist before he latched them to the chair? Reagan? I glanced up to see Quan standing before me, his gloves removed. When did they move the table to the side? He seems more affected by the serum than normal. Constable Makari sat on the relocated table. A flicker of worry crossed his features until he noticed my gaze, then a mask of indifference slid over his face. His reaction acted like a slap in the face, pushing me to a clearer awareness and jerking me out of the foggy muddle the drugs created. I added a bit of catnip. Some felines are good at shielding during questioning. No matter how thin his blood, he may have inherited the ability. Quan studied me as he spoke. I wondered what he saw. Did I care? Cheater, I muttered. The corner of Quan's lips kicked up in a quick smile. Reagan, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I will be touching you as you respond. The answers and any images I glean will be recorded. He cocked his head in the direction of the screen before he placed the small flat disc on the pads of his fingers that would digitally record what Quan saw and felt while performing the mind scan. Not good. That was way too much. There was way too much I didn't want anyone to see, much less a constable. I didn't glance at Constable Makari. Was he here to make sure I didn't reveal anything the Brackian didn't want known? Did I even know any Brackian secrets? Did he tell his partner he knew me? Mellow or not, my heartbeat kicked up a notch. Hopefully the adrenaline would burn away some of the chemical that had stolen my faculties. I needed a clearer mind. Quan touched the back of my hand. Glancing up at those gauze-covered eyes, I wondered if the metal hid them for a reason. The data files and the video of your movements all confirm your statements today. Quan began, but I interrupted when something dawned on me. You don't believe the data. Quan ignored my question, and you have an artificial limb, do you not? Yes, I'm missing my right leg from the mid-thigh down. Will you explain how it happened? My mind immediately went blank. I had spent years attempting to forget that day and how it had wrecked my life. I understand this must be hard for you, but please answer the question. Quan's voice was soft and soothing, but nothing could calm the riot of emotions the memory of that day caused. Even with my system full of drugs, my heart sped up even more. I bit out the words as if they were being forcefully pulled from me. I lost my leg in an explosion. Where was this? My temper flared because both of the constables knew the where and how. One even knew the why. It was in my records, and yet they stood there and made me relive that terrible day. As quickly as the anger came to life, I snuffed the emotion out. Such reactions wouldn't serve me here and now. I was a geology grad student in my last year at the university. A friend and I stopped by planet Mariana 3 to gather fossils for my term paper. We were accidentally caught at the site when the mining company began to blast. Were you aware the area had been approved for mining? Yes, but I had been told the blasting would be delayed for 2 weeks. I released all the remembered horror of seeing the dirt and rock blow skyward, the ground trembling under my feet. I let Quan feel my sheer terror as I turned to run, knowing we would never be able to clear the blast radius as charge after charge blew, coming closer to us with each successive detonation. I shared with him what I recalled of the sheer agony of my leg being twisted and torn from me, and the overwhelming guilt when I realized my friend's blood intermingled with mine. Quan was breathing deeply when I opened my eyes. I didn't remember closing them. We were lucky. A drone flying overhead sighted us, picked us up, and carried us to the mining company's triage unit. We would have died if we hadn't been discovered so quickly. Your friend survived. I threw up a wall to shield that part of my memories from Quan's sigh probing, and filled the barrier with my anguish, real and still fresh, laced with heartbreak. I didn't look at Constable Macari when I said yes, and he wouldn't see me afterwards. The accident stole more than my limb. I'm sorry. Surprised, I glanced up at Quan. I hadn't expected an apology from him. I am too. How did you come to know of this position with Aurora? That was the question I'd been waiting for. I'd carefully constructed the barriers here so he would see only what I wanted. A Brachian noble suggested the position. It wasn't a lie. He knew of my major, and I wanted to work with the Brachian government to terraform their new homeworld. Fact. But after the accident and my friend, I wasn't in the right mindset to finish my degree. Truth. The name of the noble? Quan asked. Constable Macari didn't bat an eyelash, and I wondered what game we were playing. Why was Constable Macari, Gensei, here? Surely he already knew who'd helped me get the position on the mining station. Did he expect me to lie? If so, he should know me better than that. Lord Daima Isaac Gensei. Neither constable responded with shock that I had just named the constable's Macari's brother. I was disappointed because I'd been expecting something more. Instead of their reaction was anticlimactic. Why give me the serum and useless questions if they already knew the answers? Are you working with Lord Daima to force Aurora to settle out of court to expedite the compensation to the Brachian? 20 years ago, Aurora overmined the Brachian homeworld, destroying the planet and leaving its people homeless. They were still battling in courts for compensation from Aurora. Did the fraternity really believe that Lord Daima was behind the blackmail? The adrenaline seemed to be tapering off, letting the chemical cocktail affect me again. The mellow feeling turned to exhaustion. No. Are you looking for revenge against Aurora for the accident on Mariana 3? No. Are you in any way trying to sabotage Aurora's operations on the station? No, I yawned, blinking at Quan as he unbuckled the arm straps. What happened? Did Quan ask me any more questions? What did I say? I should have been pissed, but all I wanted was a soft bed and hours of sleep. Quan spoke, and I focused my muddled mind to decipher what he said. Will you finish your degree? Yes, I yawned again, my jaw cracking. In 6 months, I'll be free of this place. I've been working with one of the staff geologists. He'll write a letter of recommendation for me. Quan made agreeing noises as if he were half listening. What about your friend? My eyes slid closed. He didn't want to have anything to do with me. Truth. Then he wasn't truly your friend. I would have answered, confessed that he'd been so much more than her friend, but the drugs, thankfully, stole my words as well as my consciousness. And that is the reading for the Aurora Conspiracy. I hope you guys are enjoying the birthday bash and all the little things. I mean, this is as exciting as I get, that are going on. And we will see you, or I will see you next time for the next reading. So have a good day. We'll talk to you later.